This program is entitled Genealogy Research Tips. This is coming to you from the Kokomo-Howard County Public Library, and I am Ron Tietrich, Genealogy Assistant. The world of genealogical research has changed so rapidly in the last 20 years. Billions of genealogical records have been digitized and are readily available online. Mega websites such as Ancestry.com, Family Tree DNA, 23andMe, Find My Past, MyHeritage, and FamilySearch.org, to name a few, have made researching family history and genealogy and DNA accessibility much easier. Of course, there have always also sprung up an overwhelming number of websites that contain erroneous and misleading information, and thousands of eager people have merged information from other researches with their own and created completely unreliable resources. Like most research fields, proof of evidence and reliance on primary sources have sometimes been ignored by novices in a rush to reconstruct genealogical ancestries that stretch back hundreds of years, connecting to numerous royal lineages, which are often untrustworthy and based on legend and myth. Alex Haley's 900-page book and the resulting 1997 television miniseries, Roots, a dramatization of his family line from Kunta Kinte's enslavement to the liberation of his descendants, did much to spark popular excitement about ancestry. Television was finally dealing openly with the immensity of an institution that had affected 300 years of American history. Genealogy for Americans has become the second most popular hobby following gardening. It has become a billion-dollar industry that has spawned profitable websites, television shows, scores of books, and with the advent of genetic test kits, a cottage industry in DNA ancestry testing, promising answers to long-lost relationships and connections reaching back hundreds of years. Although so many things have changed, the core of good genealogical research has remained the same. The following are timeless family history tips that will help you move your research efforts to the next level, no matter how carefully you have tried to organize and preserve your research. Start with what you know. Look around your house for anything that may be pertinent to your family ancestry. There may be treasures sitting under your nose. What heirlooms or other objects have you inherited from family members? What stories did you hear in your childhood? What family lore did you hear about people who lived more than 100 years ago? You will have to validate these stories, since information passed down from generation to generation may have been assigned to the wrong people or the wrong side of the family. Bias is a part of how things are passed down, so there may have been some of this in the stories. Move back in time. Start with the most recent members of your family, you and your parents and siblings. Carefully document events for each generation as you move backwards in time. Strong research must be built on a solid foundation, even for relatives or ancestors you may have personally known. This process will keep you from making rash and unsubstantial assumptions about your family lineage. While you think there may have been a famous person in your background, you cannot work down from that person to yourself. Climb up the tree, not down it. Make a plan. Think about your goals for the project. Consider what questions about your ancestry you would like to answer. Are you interested in their daily lives, their neighbors and local community involvement, educational levels, achievements, occupations, religious affiliations, migration routes, places of burial? Your goals may seem daunting, but once you have outlined them, you can then begin to plan how to attain them. Ask for help. Ask other genealogists for assistance. By tapping into a network of family members, you can start to uncover new information and resources that you may never find if working alone. Facebook might be a resource to locate living relatives. In-depth interviews with members of your family will certainly open up new avenues of research. Each second or third cousin will prove helpful in connecting the dots. Hiring a professional genealogist with a specialty in a certain area can help. There are online databases of such professionals for breaking through brick walls. Study social history. Vital records of birth and death are only the tip of the iceberg. Try to recreate their life and times. What communities did they live in? What dangers did they face? What social, economic, religious, or political forces influenced decisions they made? What did their lives compare to those of their peers? These factors will give you context for the generations that came before you. City directories, Sanborn fire insurance maps, city and county histories, scholarly texts, and even well-researched historical fiction can provide solid information. Borders changed. As communities expanded westward, as did sources of records for finding your ancestors. Do not attempt to modernize the locations, as this will mar your research. For example, West Virginia was not a state until 1863, so no one was born, married, or died in that state prior to that date. More likely, it was a larger county, or perhaps even Virginia. Research your ancestors' networks. Your ancestor did not live in a vacuum. There was a wider community of friends and neighbors, extended family members and co-workers who can provide a broader and more complete picture. Do not ignore collateral relatives who married into your family but were not blood related, such as husbands or wives of aunts and uncles, or spouses of siblings and cousins. You may discover a double cousin whose parents may have been cousins who married sister and brother, or sister who married brother. So be careful. There will probably be some that will match. Some of your lines will match. Seek original records. Paper and digital indices do not tell the whole story. Spelling mistakes and transcription errors can sidetrack your research into the wrong family. Locating original records or digital copies of them will be of great advantage. These are primary sources. Records made at the time of particular events. Secondary sources are published records taken from original records. If a primary sources are not provided, look for them. Looking at the census page immediately before and after your family members will show friends and extended families that lived nearby. Often, a widowed mother or a widowed father is living with one of his or her children. Evaluate your sources. When and how a record was created can drastically affect the reliability of the information. If a publication is based on hearsay interviews created several years after an event, there may be serious errors. Death certificates created within a few days of a death or of an event of this kind are more reliable than dates found on the tombstone, which may not have been erected until decades had passed. Often, new tombstones have been placed by descendants when old tombstones have become illegible and errors may have crept in. Hopefully, they left the old one with the new one. Watch for date errors and impossibilities. Make sure that the data you find make sense. If you find online information submitted by another genealogist, consider the sources of the data and whether or not the submitter did the research personally or copied it from earlier sources. No father sired a child when he himself was at age 7. No mother likely gave birth to a child in her 80s. There may be a missing generation involved. If the time and place is incorrect, Beware. A child born in Pennsylvania in 1850 was likely not the child of parents who lived in Indiana in the 1820s. Use records as stepping stones. Examine ancestral records to find clues to other documents where they may appear. Look for passenger lists, naturalization certificates, military service records, such as draft cards, service records, pension applications. The number of years married can often be calculated from finding marriage banns or marriage certificates. Marriage banns were public announcements made in churches or in newspapers as much as a week or more before the actual marriage ceremony. Occupational records can prove helpful in learning where and for how long a family lived in a particular location. Expand your definition of records. Census, birth, marriage, and death certificates are important, but your ancestors may have recorded a wide variety of less frequently used documents. Court and land records are not as accessible and often not well indexed, but can reveal fascinating details about the lives of your ancestors. Society minutes, school reports, newspaper gossip columns, and records pertaining to female ancestors contain many of these sources. Develop a consistent filing system. By adopting a standard filing system, you can bring order to all of the files, records, photographs, and other data you have accumulated. You do not want a child or a grandchild to toss all of your work after you have died because no sense can be made of it. The Ahnentafel system, which is a German word for ancestor table, is one possibility, and it assigns a specific number to each individual. Here is a sample for George Walker Bush. An Ahnentafel system shows all direct ancestors. The numbers double traveling back in each generation. So you'll see Bush in number 1, you'll see it in number 2 because that's the father. Then you double that number, and in number 4, there's the next Bush. Double that number, and to number 8, there's the next Bush. Or you can follow some of the other lines just by doubling the number. A modified register system is a way to record all descendants, not just your direct ones. Each generation is identified in outline form to show how far an individual is descended from a particular ancestor. In this example, George, born in 1766, is the first child in generation 2, and his siblings are Jacob, Henry, Abraham, and Magdalene, born in 1771, etc. A plus before a number means that there is more information in the next generation listed further down. If more information is found later, it can be inserted into this type of an outline. Cite everything. Source citations lend credibility to your research. They should include enough information so that others can find your work and can track the information back to the original sources. Evidence explained, citing history sources from artifacts to cyberspace by Elizabeth Schoen Mills, last published in 2017. Third edition is available at Amazon.com and in most genealogical libraries. We do have it here at Howard County in the library. Back up your research. The evolution of digital technology does not ensure that your documents are safer than they used to be. Formatting can become outdated, and hard drives do crash, in addition to the results of fires, floods, and other natural disasters. Regularly back up your data files on your computer desktop or external hard drive. Make copies on at least 2 thumb drives or use a cloud storage service. Paper copies are also important. Store your heirlooms and documents safely. Scanning images can help, but digitized files are not the same as the original items. Grandpa's watch, your mother's wedding dress, or a beloved childhood toy. These items require special care to minimize age-related damage. Keep heirlooms, papers, and other keepsakes in a dry, climate-controlled room. away from direct sunlight and stored in acid-free boxes and paper. Do not carry such items with you. If you must display them, be careful that they are not broken or handled. Scanned images or PowerPoint presentations are fine for public demonstrations. Never store artifacts in the attic or the basement, where temperature and humidity vary widely. Mold, heat, and rodents are fatal enemies of your artifacts. Share your stories. You are not finding just names and dates in your research. You are uncovering stories. Find ways to share these stories with others who might be drawn into the search by their ancestors' trials and tribulations in a way that mere data cannot display. Social media are good for sharing short snippets of information. A narrative biography is more ambitious, but equally rewarding. Turn your research into gifts. You can print and distribute family trees or family photos or arrange your photos into books. These ancestors belong to all of their descendants, not just to you, so share them. Celebrate your heritage. Once you have discovered your ancestors and ethnic heritage, get in touch with your roots. Share recipes of family dishes or join heritage-focused societies, such as the Society for German Genealogy in Eastern Europe, or the Order of Sons and Daughters of Italy. Practice family traditions or take part in ethnicity-focused festivals, such as Oktoberfest, or activities highlighted by the American Association of Scottish Games and Festivals. Planning a family reunion can also help you get in touch with a wide range of relatives. Keep learning. Read books on researching in your ancestors' area and take advantage of online educational opportunities. Libraries and genealogical societies offer educational programming on various genealogical topics. You can take advantage of live stream genealogy conversations and webinars of local, state, and national societies. Begin with your local library and genealogical society and become involved. Embrace new tools. Well-documented online family trees, DNA testing, and social media have changed family history research and make it easier to save and share your findings. A DNA test may solve unknown genealogical brick walls and connect you to a family you never knew. The world awaits. Who is waiting to meet you? Thank you.